This video is for you if you're looking to start your property investment journey. Maybe you're already an existing investor and you're looking to scale your property investment journey, but you're not sure whether to use the service accommodation module or to use HMO module, house in multiple occupation. In this video, I'm going to break down both strategies. We're going to start with the definition of each strategy, the differences between both of the strategies, and then we're going to look at the analysis, the calculations, and at the end we talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each of those strategies. Hey guys, my name is Rahim Bah. I was like everybody, working as an accountant in a job where I was working seriously long hours. I was undervalued, underappreciated, going nowhere. I took the leap of faith to start my property investment journey with nothing, to buy my first, second, and I was able to build that to a multi-million pound property investment portfolio. Now I've got an estate agency, a renovation company, and also help professionals to use my tried and tested method to make, manage, and multiply income through investment property. I hope I earn the right of discussing this strategy because I do both strategies, and I will tell you which one actually make you more money than the other one. By the way, if you just bumped into this video, hit the subscribe button so you can join the family, because I share personal development, financial freedom, and how to make, manage, and multiply income through investment property. Let's get to it. Let's look at serviced accommodation for a minute. What is a serviced accommodation property? A serviced accommodation property is the process by which an investor would buy a property. Instead of renting that property to a family, you rent it as an Airbnb. In essence, you're renting it per night. So you've got guests checking into your property and they pay you before they even checked in your property. So you're kind of using that property as a mini boutique type kind of hotel. Envision booking a hotel room. That's exactly what service accommodation does. But the differences are, with service accommodation, you get to live as if you're living in your own home. Let's move on to HMO. What is HMO? What is the abbreviation? It's house in multiple occupation. So what is this? This is the process by which an investor would purchase a property, and instead of renting it to a family, they rent it out on a room by room basis. So that's why we call it a multiple occupation. So in essence, each tenant in each bedroom pays you money for living in your property. That then begs the question to find out, where can you really run a property as a HMO? Because obviously you got to ensure that property is in the right location and it attracts the right sort of tenant. So let's look at service accommodation just for a minute. Service accommodation, basically, you want that service accommodation to be very close to city centers, town centers, train station, bus stops, where things are happening. This is where you want to have your service accommodation. On the other hand, HMO, so you want that HMO to be close to a city center, town center, employers, so that the property is easily accessible to your targeted market. But with HMO, you got to ensure that you're allowed to run the property as a HMO in your designated area, because some councils and cities do not allow you to have HMO in certain areas, especially areas where there are Article 4. What is an Article 4? Article 4 is a place where there are already lots of HMOs, and really and truly the council believe it's enough to have HMO properties in that area. That being said, let's look at the calculation, and let's start with serviced accommodation. So if you're renting a serviced accommodation property, as I said, you get paid on a nightly basis. So the guest actually pays you before you actually check into their property. Place like Birmingham, the nightly rate for a 5-bedroom property goes for about £220 per night. So times that by 30 nights, you're talking about £6,600. Let's look at it in a way that we've only rented the property on a nightly basis for half of the month. In essence, we only had guests in our property for 15 nights. So for 15 nights then, that would have been a rental income of £3,300. So in essence, this is the money we'd made from renting the property on a nightly basis. This then becomes our gross rental income. Obviously, we've bought the property. Perhaps you know what you're doing. You bought it on a mortgage, and with a mortgage, obviously that comes with interest payment for the borrowing that the bank actually giving us. So let's assume the mortgage interest payment, let's say that was £800. So that £800 obviously is what we pay to obviously get the 75% that the bank lend us to buy the property in the first place. So that then becomes our monthly ongoing cost. In most cases, this cost is fixed cost if your interest is on fixed, If not, it could be variable, which it goes up and down. So obviously, if you're running a property as a serviced accommodation, it's a hospitality business. So it is like you got to make sure the property is ready. So for a property like a 5-bedroom house, your monthly cost running it as a serviced accommodation is likely to be £1,000. This is the money that you kind of spend to get the property to obviously be a good or beautiful serviced accommodation. So looking at that then, our total expense would be, you guessed it right, £1,800. So £1,800 then becomes our total expense for running the property as a serviced accommodation. Let's look at the profit. So in essence then, if we take away our 1,800 expenses from our monthly income, that gives us a net profit of £1,500. So £1,500 is the net profit. So what is a net profit? A net profit is your revenue, which is our rental income here, minus all the expenses to keep the property going, and then gives you your net profit. Suppose then you're making that money every single month at £1,500. You're talking about £18,000 every single year for renting the property as a serviced accommodation. Oh, sorry for interrupting this video. I just wanted to draw your attention to a guide I've just created. This guide is for you if you're looking to start and scale in property investment, and you've got questions that you want to ask in order to start your property investment. This guide is the ultimate guide to start and scale in property investment journey. I talk about the different type of investment strategies. I also discuss the 11 ways you can raise finance to make any property no money down deals, and the type of properties to buy in order to generate a serious return in your investment. And I'm giving this book away for completely free of charge, no string attached, nothing, absolutely free. Click the link on the description of this video to get your free guide now. We've only got a limited number of these copies available as well, so click the link to get your guide now. Let's get back to our video. Let's move on to HMO. You see, HMO, I love it. I love HMO. It is one of the strategies that I have most of my properties on as well, but this is gonna blow your mind. Suppose then we have 5 of these bedrooms. So each bedroom is going for 575. So now we've got a 5-bedroom property. So if you times 575 by the 5-bedroom, which is the number of bedrooms we have in the property, that will generate us a rental income of £2,875. Again, this is your gross rental income. This is the money we made for renting the property on a room by room basis. So with serviced accommodation also, assuming that is the same property, right, our interest payment would also be £800, because obviously it's the same property with the same value, so the interest payment tend to be the same. So with HMO properties also, as investors, we are liable to pay the bills in the property. So that then becomes our running expense. That then will be about £600 for a 5-bedroom HMO. So if you add those costs, the £800 and the £600, that gives us a total expense of £1,400. So this is the cost we incur, obviously, for keeping the property as a HMO property. So if we minus £1,400 from the £2,875 gross rental income, that property will generate us a net profit of £1,475. So this then becomes our net rental income. So if we times that by 12 months, we're talking about £17,700. And this then becomes your annual net profit. I know what you're thinking. The margin between those two strategies is not great, right? It's not that a massive difference. Again, you're talking about £300, right? £300 is the difference. So looking at the figures at the base level, this is what it gets you. If you rent the property as a serviced accommodation on 50% occupancy rate. As you know, we did 50% of the month. And then as a HMO, there's no occupancy rate there. This is the money they pay you every single month in order to generate that 17,700. So now we know the calculations. Let's look at the pros and cons, and then obviously then we can talk about what strategy do I actually prefer. Let's look at the serviced accommodation. Serviced accommodation is beautiful. It's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. You can rent the property 50% of the time. You make more money than you rent it as a HMO. So with service accommodation, obviously it's a hospitality business. You got to have great customer service, and you got to be having someone to kind of deal with the guests to make sure everything is nice and tidy and everything is going well, and which quite frankly does not take you loads of hours to do. But with serviced accommodation, it gives you money. It gives you £18,000. But also with serviced accommodation, you're gonna love this one. This amount, this 50% occupancy rate, is a variable income, right? It could go up, right? It could go up drastically, especially if you know your market and you know your investment area. So basically you can play around with these figures. So let's say then this property here, the SA here, let's say we just had an extra 10% occupancy rate. So instead of 50%, let's say we have 60%. That will push your net income from 18,000 to 9,800 pounds. So in essence, you could increase the income you make as a serviced accommodation depending what value you brings to the serviced accommodation. You may be thinking, how do I increase it? Do I increase it by days? Do I increase it by however you want to increase it? This is how you can increase. You can increase it by having a minimum rate you charge. Remember when I said you can charge £220 per night, right? So that would be your baseline, right? For the first 5 people in your property. But also you can increase it by early check-in, late checkout. You can also charge for pets. You can charge for so many things around it to obviously increase the income of your investment property. So these are the ways you can increase your income as a serviced accommodation. See this as a business basically, because it's like a business, right? So let's look at the disadvantages. When it comes to disadvantages, it is a hospitality business. I think I keep repeating that. You got to spend about an hour or 2 a week to get that going, but it's worth it if you're making 19,800, right? But also it could fluctuate. So maybe you could go down the opposite direction. Maybe your 18,000 would go down, let's say by 10%. That then reduces your income to annual income to £16,200. So in essence, you're making less money there. You could go below to 30%. So basically, your income fluctuates a lot more with serviced accommodation properties. And another disadvantage is that guests can come in, they don't like your property, they just decide to walk out of the door and ask you for a refund. Or maybe you can get guests into the property, they can come and trash it, make party and do all these sort of things in your property that you not really want anybody to do. But in overall, serviced accommodation is very, very beneficial. Let's look at HMO. HMO, obviously you get a steady recurring income every single month, especially if you vetted and qualify your tenant nicely, making sure you got the right tenant in your property to pay you every single month. You got that rent coming every single month. And with HMO then, it's kind of a passive income because you can hand that over to an estate agency to manage it for you completely without having any issues around it. That is beautiful. Absolutely amazing. So if you're one of those that like steady recurring income, not having this fluctuation like serviced accommodation, just want to make sure you've got your £1,475 every month without having any issue, maybe HMO is for you. So looking at the investment strategies, basically with HMO, you are settled for the final amount, right? You can only increase your income end of the year if a new tenant is moving in, because obviously then inflation would have kicked in, so you would have increased your rent. So here you cannot manipulate your rental income. You've got that steady recurring income every single month. It does not reduce, it does not go up. The only time it reduces basically is when a tenant messes you up here. If a tenant messes you up, then obviously your rental income reduces. Okay, that's the only way it would go. It wouldn't go higher than your £17,500. So basically you got that fixed return steady income. Some people love that. Most people actually love having steady recurring income. So to summarize then, the other one is kind of a bit of a business. You got to invest 2 or 3 hours a week, and the other one is kind of a passive income, but your income is kind of sealed. You cannot go over and beyond what you're getting as a HMO property. That then gets you to think, which strategy would you really prefer? So here's the thing, really and truly, it depends on your lifestyle. What do you see yourself doing in the future? Who are you? Why do you want to invest in property in the first place? Is it for passive recurring income? Or maybe you want it to have it be as a side hustle where you can involve sometimes for a couple of hours or 3 hours a week, which really truly is not lots of hours considering working for someone else. So what I did, if you really want to choose one of them and you are a risk taker, maybe serviced accommodation is yours, right? Because when I started, I used the serviced accommodation route a lot more because I know that I can manipulate the figures. I can actually add more value. But then later on, when I know literally fluctuate a lot more, and then I slowly moved into HMO properties because that then gives me my serious return on investment without actually messing about, knowing I've got that 17,700 every single year. And quite frankly then, my portfolio then has become more kind of a HMO properties than serviced accommodation properties. So in essence, I end up being here a lot more than here, than being a serviced accommodation. But it does not mean it is a wrong investment strategy. It's because my plans are changing consistently. So I move with my plans to ensure that I have my end goal in mind. So there you have it. Serviced accommodation and HMO. Comment below and tell me which strategy really resonate with you. I really hope this video has been helpful. If this video has been helpful, smash the like button below, subscribe to my channel for more amazing videos. I look forward to sharing the next one.